Hi, Chef Matt here at the Culinary Scene in Denver, Colorado, Roth Living's Sub-Zero Wolf Cove showroom. I want to welcome everyone to the virtual ownership experience for the Wolf dual convection ovens. And this is going to cover the oven that is in your dual fuel range, as well as the E-Series and M-Series ovens. So we're really going to go through explanations of what these modes and what this oven is going to do for you in your home. And we've got some great examples that we prepared for you today. So this is not Chef Matt and Chef Gil showing off our culinary skills. We're showing you what your ovens can do with the foods in your home that you're going to get some phenomenal results with when you understand that there's more than one bake mode and more than one way to cook things, okay? Bake is gonna be one that you will use from time to time, but there's so many more options for you to use on a daily basis. So let's go ahead and start off with, I wanna explain that the dual convection oven and the dual fuel, as well as the dual convection oven in E-Series and M-Series, they all function the same, okay? Their convection systems might be just a touch different from each other in how they're circulating the air, but I will tell you, all of the modes are functioning the same, and they're going to be very, very close in results from oven to oven. So I'm going to explain to you where the heat sources are, where you want to put the food as far as the rack system for the benefit of browning, crisping, whatever it might be, okay? We're also going to cover the gourmet modes and what those are meant for. And we're going to also talk about everybody's favorite, the cleanup after a few weeks. When we've cooked with these ovens, we might want to do a little touch up on the interiors to make sure they stay pristine, okay? So let's start off with, I want to mention the probe system, okay? When we get into when we get into roast and convection roast, this is going to be a key factor when you're cooking proteins, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, lamb, any meats that are large enough to use the probe to where the last inch of that probe is inserted into the thickest part of that protein. And we're talking, you know, a larger chicken breast from the market might be thick enough to, as long as you can bury that needle completely in the protein. It does need to, that shaft needs to be completely in the protein. You can use this for pork tenderloin, but specifically, yes for chicken, yes for turkey. You're worried about roasting that perfect turkey at Thanksgiving, cook it with your probe, monitor the temperature. That's the key, okay? In culinary school, I will tell you that we were taught to cook all proteins to specific temperatures. I would never give you a recipe that says preheat your Wolf dual convection oven on convection roast 425 and I want you to cook it for an hour. No, because I don't know if you're buying a 3-pound chicken or a 5.5-pound fryer. Okay, that's going to be a huge difference on how that comes out. I am going to tell you, hey, you know what? You want to preheat your oven this temperature, and I want you to use a probe, and you're going to set your probe temp for 165 degrees. That bird's going to come out perfect. Okay, so these are really keys you have at your disposal. Now, you're going to find this blue wire probe in your ownership packet. It's going to be bundled up with a rubber band, and I want you to go ahead and get that out so it doesn't get tucked in a drawer somewhere and lost with paperwork. Put that in one of your kitchen drawers, and I wouldn't put it by any knives where the knives can sever or hurt the cord at all, okay? Put it around some other stuff that's not sharp. Also, if you have a Wolf convection steam oven, you got a probe for that as well. That probe is black. The blue one is meant to go with blue interior ovens, okay? So our E-Series, M-Series, dual fuel ovens are all blue interiors. Blue matches the blue wire, okay? So when you're done with this, you're going to hand wash it, dry it, put it away. No dishwasher, no soaking in any water. It's going to be really easy to clean up. It's silicone and metal, really easy to take care of, okay? So let's talk about the modes. Let's start to dive into what is your oven doing when we're setting it and what am I going to use those modes for. Let's start off with bake. So bake, I want you to know that all of the heat is coming from the bottom of the oven. And so it is a hidden element. You don't see the element there, but the element is underneath that metal plate on the bottom, and it's radiating very intense heat, which is heating the oven from the bottom only. So bake is very effective for cooking off a dessert, for cooking off some different baked goods. Yes, you can bake a potato. That's going to be fine. I would prefer to use convection that we're going to talk about later because it's going to speed up that process a little bit, but you could bake a potato. Now, I made some sticky toffee puddings today. I didn't want any crispy. I didn't want to speed it along. I wanted to get a really nice rise out of that little cake. So I used bake. And in the bake format, especially with baked goods, it's really important that you understand you want to use the center rack in the oven. Position 4. The reason why is that really intense heat from the bottom, and as that heat rises, it bounces off the top of the oven, and that's going to tend to over brown some of your baked goods. Vegetables, not a problem. Potatoes, not a problem, but we don't want to over brown or have any excessive browning on any baked goods, especially, so avoid the top and bottom racks in the bake mode, okay? It is going to be dynamic and doing a phenomenal job at baking very evenly in that middle rack. And you can load up that middle rack position with as many pans will fit. You'll be fine on that, but stay away from the top and the bottom, okay? Now, next, we're going to talk about convection, okay? Convection is a mode where there is no top heat, there's no bottom heat, there's very residual, a very low percentage of bottom heat, but not enough to really calculate into a percentage for you. Just know that in convection, all of your heat is coming from behind the wall where those convection fans are. So, when am I going to use convection? I'm going to use convection if I'm doing some desserts, if I want to do multiple trays of some cream puffs, some cheese puffs, some cookies, multiple trays of some muffins, a baked good that I do want a little bit of extra browning, I do want a little crisping, then I'm going to use convection from that. And I also want to bake multiple racks because I have so little heat coming from the bottom, all the rest is coming from behind the wall. I don't get any hot and cold spots in the oven. So that batch of cookies that little Susie came to you at the last minute and said, oh, Mom, Dad, I'm supposed to bake off 3 or 4 dozen cookies for the bake sale tomorrow. Someone's having a birthday party. Okay, you can whip up that batch of cookies and you can do 3 trays at a time. It's really forgiving. It's really efficient. This is the same technology that as chefs we've worked with in the industry. Our professional ovens in the kitchen are fed from a heat source fan in the back with no element on the top or the bottom. You've got the same thing in your kitchen now. So you've really got the benefits of what a professional chef has, and yours is actually more even than what I've worked with in the industry. So you're going to love that. I want to tell you some guidelines about convection, though, that you want to follow. So not as much for potatoes or for roasted vegetables as for baked goods. Baked goods, so we're going to use a chocolate chip cookie recipe, for example. I've got a chocolate chip cookie recipe that I love. It calls for preheating the oven to 350 degrees, bake, and cooking those cookies for 16 minutes, okay? I like a little bit of a crispy edge on my cookie, and I don't like to bake just 1 tray at a time. So I'm going to be able to lower the temperature 25 degrees, and I'm going to back off on the time 25%. So 325 preheated oven on convection, and I'm also going to start checking those cookies at 12 minutes, okay? I can always add a minute or 2. I can't subtract time from cookies that are over browned or a little bit burnt, okay? So please remember those guidelines. That will be a key factor. When I talk to clients in the showroom in Kansas City, I've talked to so many people over the years that are so intimidated by convection because they just didn't know those guidelines. They didn't understand that they needed to make some adjustments in order to get this great product, but also to perform like they wanted it to. So remember those, make a little note if you need to, okay? So convection can be used for stuff besides baked goods. You know, I have done a tray of roasted potatoes to start, and then I might go in with some chicken thighs or chicken breasts, and then finish with a tray of some vegetables and had a roasted dinner where everything that we're eating that night is roasted, nice and crispy, caramelized. It's just another way to use one appliance for the entire meal. So play around with different ideas on that and take it, make it your own, okay? Now, next I'm gonna talk to you about convection roast, okay, while we're on the topic of convection. Convection roast is where we're getting heat from the back wall as well as from the top of the oven. That broiler element is pulsing on and off to heat the oven along with the fans in the back of the oven. With that, we're going to get really substantial caramelization on proteins, on vegetables, on potatoes. So some things we did today for you. So you see how nice and crispy that chicken is, that spatchcock chicken? So that was done at 425 degrees convection roast, okay? Same with the potatoes, okay? You can even go up to 450, 475 with potatoes. They can take a lot of heat. These are some fingerling potatoes that we roasted off crispy. And we've also got some vegetables. I steamed off the broccoli and the cauliflower for a few minutes. You could blanch it in a pot of hot boiling water. From there, roasted for about 12 minutes, and they're beautiful and caramelized. So this is a favorite mode of mine to use in this oven because it really gives you substantial browning, crisping, caramelization, and don't be afraid to go higher in the heat category or in the numbers. 325, 350, 375 is not going to give you the substantial browning and caramelization that we've got here. You do need to go higher up in the 400s to achieve those. Now, that doesn't mean we can't use convection roast in some lower temps as well. I will take a pork shoulder or a roast beef and I will slow roast it at 225, but with convection, I get a really beautiful crust outside while I get this really juicy pink center inside. So there's different ways to utilize this mode. It's not all high heat, it can be some moderate and some low heat as well. It really depends on the proteins, the starches that you're cooking, and how you're going to use those. Now, in those roast modes, remember, it's going to ask you when you go to convection roast, it's going to ask you if you want to use the probe. If you do, then you're going to go ahead and plug it in and you're going to set the temperature at that time. If you're not using the probe, then you just press cancel and then you go on with the programming of that mode. Now, when we want to move on to the next topic of roast. What is roast doing that convection roast is not? So roast, about 2/3 of the heat is coming from the top of the oven, pulsing on and off on that roast element or broil element, and then the remainder of the heat is coming from the bottom. Now, when am I going to use roast? Roast is going to be really effective for that turkey at Thanksgiving, for a large ham, for prime rib, for leg of lamb. We're talking about meat cuts that need to cook for a while to tenderize. They need heat, they need cooking time to break down and make them more tender and juicy. And roast is going to give you better caramelization, better coloring, better crusting than baking. Baking, all the heat's coming from the bottom and coming up around. Roast is a more dynamic, straightforward, direct heat to what you're cooking. especially when we're talking about proteins and roasts, okay? Now, I have roasted potatoes. Many times, those are really, that mode is beneficial for doing that. I tend to do roast potatoes if it's a larger baked potato. The smaller potatoes, I prefer to use that mode we talked about previously, convection roast. But roast can be a great tool for you, whether you're slow roasting, whether you're roasting at a higher temp. My family's favorite chicken and one of our go-to meals is something very similar to this, but we're leaving the bird whole, and we're gonna put that chicken in. The larger the meat, the further away from the top you want to be, okay? So if I'm roasting a chicken, I'm probably not gonna go much higher than position 2, because I don't want to be too close to the top element where it will start to burn that chicken before it's done. But our family, we roast our chicken on 450 degrees. Really hot, really intense, but it gets the skin rendered of all the fat and gets super crispy and is just delicious. So poultry at higher temperatures, pink meats at lower temperatures, okay? There's not really too much that I roast in the mid 300s. So don't be afraid to play around with low temperatures to go slower and lower. Let the temp probe keep track of the doneness on that. And then when we're talking about the high temp poultry, duck, chicken, turkey, quail, those benefit from higher heat and actually come out nicer and not as mushy a texture, much juicier and crispier. Okay? Now, while I've got the oven open, I do want to point out we were talking about the probe and we were just talking about roasting meats. That's a good prelude into where do I put the probe? So there's a port right here in the top of the oven, and you're simply going to take and plug it in like that, and this is going to be plugged into the meat, and then it's going to ask you to program the probe temperature. Okay, simple as that. Now, when you're done roasting, use a towel to pull that out because that probe is as hot as the oven and you want to be careful with your digits. Okay? Now, next thing we're going to talk about is going to be broil. Broil, in this mode, your oven does not need to be, the oven door does not need to be ajar. I know in the old days, I grew up with an oven that the rules were that if you were broiling something, you had to have that door open 6 inches to let the heat escape so that you weren't actually baking whatever you were broiling because it would heat up the oven. Okay, your Wolf oven evacuates the heat it doesn't need, and so the result is broiling and browning, crisping, caramelizing what you've got under the broiler, whether it's steaks, whether it's vegetables, whether it's fish, finishing desserts, finishing a French onion soup with mounds of Swiss cheese and croutons all over it. There's lots of really fun stuff you can do with that broiler. You do have 3 levels of broiler to play with. Broil 1, 2, and 3. You're going to select it based on what you're using it for, okay? And you're going to want to keep in mind your spacing. If something is thicker and you're going to fully cook it in that mode, might need to be a little bit further away so it can be in there longer without getting too crusty, if you will. All right? Now, let's talk about the stone mode. And I get this reply from so many people that there's a stone mode on my oven? Wait a minute, wait. What do you mean stone mode? So, when we're looking at the M series controls and the E series controls, it doesn't always spell out on the main menu where stone is. You will go through the more category. There is a position for more, and in that you're going to see stone. Stone mode is a hearth oven effect in your Wolf oven. What this is doing is it's creating the same environment for baking off flatbreads and pizzas as that pizzeria down the street that's got that beautiful, huge wood-fired stone oven that's a dome that you go in and you can see them shuffling pizzas in and out. So that oven at the pizzeria, they've got a heat source that's heating the dome, also heating the hot plate. So they've got this top and bottom heat, and they're also got natural convection flow. So your Wolf oven's mimicking that with an intense amount of heat from the bottom, intense amount of heat from the top, and convection. So the result is you can go up to 550 degrees to do your pizzas and flatbreads. And the result is going to be, I'll grab this pizza for just a minute that Gil made. Look at the crust on that. You see how bubbled and caramelized this is? It's just beautiful the way pizza is meant to be done. This isn't about our pizza crust as much as it's about what that mode does. And I will tell you, this is a tool that you might want to get simply because if you love pizzas and flatbreads, this allows you to do multiples, have pizza parties, but also it's a very durable and also reliable stone. So the Wolf Bake Stone kit is this bake stone, which is close to 1 inch thick, okay, comes with its own rack holder, and also the pizza peel, a professional pizza peel. Now, when you're using the bake stone mode, you're going to pull out the top 2 racks, and you're going to make sure that bottom rack is in the bottom position. That's going to set on top of the bottom rack, and if I'm going to 550, I'm going to allow at least 45 minutes for that oven to preheat, because this stone is absorbing the heat that the oven's giving to heat up. So it's like a heat sponge, if you will. And it does take a little bit longer to get to 550 because that's a very high level, intense amount of heat for your oven, okay? That being said, that stone is so thick, it can go in the bottom position and not crack and be safe to cook with, okay? We don't soap. All we do is scrape and wipe those stones off to reuse them again. No soaps or anything like that, easy to take care of. I don't leave them in the oven when I'm not using them. They go to a pantry corner or shelf when I'm not using them because I don't want my bake stone to taste or smell like everything else that I cook in the oven, okay? That being said, if you're not considering the bake stone right now, or you've got a bake stone at home, if it is thinner than that 3/8 of an inch, then I want you to move that single rack to the center of the oven so that it doesn't endanger that stone from cracking or breaking, okay? So you can use the bake stone you've got, but if it's thinner than 1 inch, go to the center of the oven so that the heat is more divided out, okay? Still gonna produce some great pizzas. Have fun with that. In the lower temps, down around 400, 425, I would recommend trying some fruit crostadas. You know, this summer, some berry crostadas, in the fall, some apple crostadas. That's a fun one to do. When you're doing an all butter crust or a shortening crust on these bake stones, keep in mind you need some parchment that dessert's going in on so that it's not laying directly on the stone, because a butter crust will burn on that stone, whereas if you're on parchment, it won't, okay? So that's a fun one. I encourage you to play around with the bake stone. I can tell you in Kansas City, when we do the ownership in person, we make pizzas, and that is the hit of the class, hands down. People ask me over and over again about the pizza. So you can make phenomenal pizza in your own home, okay? Now, here's another specialty mode that you might not know your oven has, proof. So, pizza dough is a yeast dough. French bread, whole wheat bread, any of your doughs, cinnamon rolls that have yeast in them. Your recipes will call for letting the dough rise or proofing the dough. Okay, what that means is to let the dough double in size, at least in the first rise, if not in the second rise. It really depends on your recipe. So the French bread that I make in my recipe, it takes if I'm doing it room temperature, about 2.5 hours at room temperature to double in size to get to where it is ready to go into the oven to bake off. I use the proof mode with the oven at 95 degrees, and that dough rises in an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes, and I actually get a better open grain and sponge on my bread. Cinnamon rolls are nice and light and airy. Your dinner rolls come out like little pillows. So it is a safe mode for your yeast doughs, and what I mean by safe is yeast will die if it's exposed to heat higher than 115 degrees. The mode of proof is from 85 degrees to 110, so it's not going to get too hot to where it endangers your dough. But be prepared, your dough will rise quite a bit faster. Also, you want to know that if you had some rolls proofing in here, if you went to turn on the light to check them, the light doesn't work with proof. So you're going to need to open the door to check those. Light will add heat to it, so we want to just make sure that we're checking them periodically, see where they're at, and we'll go from there. Okay? So next we're going to talk about, I'm going to cheat and look real quick what I'm missing. Oh, I know what the next one was. Okay, dehydrate. So do you know your oven has a dehydrate mode? This is a fun one. So earlier today, I made some mixed berry fruit leather, okay? Look at this. In fact, I'll even grab a corner and peel it back for you. Look at that. So just peels back like that. Homemade fruit leather, okay? That is fruit, honey, and a little bit of lemon juice. Homemade, no preservatives. Kids, grandkids love it. It's a fun little project. My kiddos actually made this all the time when they were in grade school and junior high. And just, it's a fun one to play around with different flavors. Fruit leather, also, if you want to make some beef jerky, some pork jerky. Say you want to dry some apple rings in the fall. You want to do some citrus for a garland. Maybe you want to do some banana slices. You know, anything that you're doing in a countertop dehydrator, you can do in your Wolf oven. You are going to place a screen like this. This is one of the screens that comes with Wolf's dehydrating kit. But even if you have just a baking cooling rack, put it over the sheet pan so nothing's dripping onto the bottom of your oven, and play around with that dehydrate mode. You'd be really surprised how much faster your Wolf oven is than that little countertop unit, because the convection system is much more powerful. Now, I will point out that when you're dehydrating, these are low temps from 120 to 170. The oven does need to be open for this to let that moisture escape. And if you don't have the Wolf dehydrating kit that has a little rubber stopper to hold the door open, you know what? A cork from a wine bottle will work really well as well. So I just put that in the top right there to hold it up, and over by the side. 170 is not going to get too hot. Oh, we've got a question.
Yeah, there's a question from Monet. We would like to know, once you set the temperature of your oven, how do you reset the temperature, either higher or lower, without stopping the original bake cycle and resetting the temperature?
Okay, and it was Monet. So we've got a question from Monet. She wanted to know how to reset the temperature higher or lower when your oven is already going. So say I've got my oven in convection 325 and I've cooked something with it, and now I want to stay in convection, but I want to change the temperature. I'm simply going to touch convection again, and I'm going to punch in 375, 425, whatever that temperature is, and then hit enter. That will change the temperature. It will keep the oven on and running in the same mode. However, all I've done is reprogram the temperature. Okay? Hope that helps. All right? So dehydrate is one that you can really play around with a lot of different things on. All right? And we're going to go through. We also need to talk about this oven. All of these ovens are connected appliances. So when you want to connect these to your app in your smartphone, you download the Sub-Zero Wolf Cove app, and Then you are going to create a username. You're going to load the products that you have in there, select those, and then you're going to go appliance to appliance, and your oven connect is in that more category, okay? Right beside stone and dehydrate. And it's going to give you the ability to preheat your oven in some modes, but you do have to go through some safeguards. You have to open the oven, confirm, the app takes you through step by step what to do. If you know that that evening on your way home, you want to preheat the oven so that it's hot and ready to go when you get home, then as long as you go through the app and step by step, set your oven up, ready to go, then on your way home that night, you can go ahead and start that oven, okay? But they want you to go through some fail safes to make sure that some steps have been taken for safety, okay? Also, if you're baking off some cookies, you've got some meat roasting, you can open the app and you can check the timer. You can check the probe temperature to see what it's doing, how long you've got, and plan for your meal or your project like that, okay? So lots and lots of really amazing functions that you're going to be able to do with your oven. And remember, bake will be one of those lonely modes when you figure out what your oven does with caramelizing fresh vegetables, potatoes, making that phenomenal pizza that you no longer have to go down the street to the pizzeria to get. You can make your favorite pizzas at home, okay? Now, we want to talk a little bit about how to remove the racks in case you're mystified by this, okay? So, these full extension glide racks, they will lift out if you simply lift up and pull them out, okay? I'm going to step over to the side for a moment. You pull those arms out, okay? This is for cleaning purposes, okay? Or to move racks around. Now, when you're ready for these to go back in, these get fed over the end of the wire there, and then just lift the front, press back and into place, okay? I want to point out that the side racks, which come out for cleaning, we're going to talk about in just a moment, you'll see some screws catty-corner to each other that are holding a little knob in that the racks snap onto. You don't take the side racks out by unscrewing something. Those simply lift off and out, okay? Now, let's talk for a moment about cleaning. Self-clean is a mode on your oven. Self-clean is an effective way to burn everything off of the interior to where it's very simple to wipe out and to start again with. Self-clean is not meant to be used weekly or monthly. Self-clean is meant to be used sparingly, once or twice a year. This mode is taking your oven close to 900 degrees to incinerate whatever's in there. In that process, you have to remove all of the racks. If not, you'll discolor them and they will also warp, okay? Number 2, never put any foil or oven liner in the bottom of your oven. If that fuses to the bottom plate, you void your warranty, okay? Nothing lays on the bottom of the oven. If you want to put a big sheet pan on the bottom rack to avoid some spills, I would recommend that. But never put anything in the bottom plate of your oven, that bottom surface. So when you do self-clean, periodically or sparingly, all of the racks come out, you wipe out any loose debris, turn on your ventilation, and you need to count on 4 hours of that oven raising in temperature. It's going to burn everything off inside, and then dropping in temperature. And at that end of 4 hours, your oven should be cool enough. It will unlock its door. It will lock during the self-clean process. It'll unlock the door, and then you're ready to go ahead and wipe it out as long as that surface is cool. Now, if you don't want to use self-clean, you want to clean topically, the more often you clean, the easier it is to clean the oven, okay? So if you don't wait for months to clean that oven, if it's done regularly, the food's not as burnt on and will not turn into carbon as easy, okay? So simple cleaners, such as Bon-Ami, Barkeeper's Friend. There are some residential spray degreasers that you can get at the supermarket. These can be used on the interior of your oven. I want you to stay away from spraying anything into the fan ports and back. If you need to get some grime off of those ports where the fans are, use a utility paintbrush and spray the detergent on there and then wipe it on. I want you to allow the detergents to eat the grime off. We don't want to use elbow grease. We don't want to muscle it off. We want to apply detergent, which is then going to eat it. It's going to remove it, and then we're going to back it up with another little scrub down and wipe down, okay? Now, for the window of your oven, the same applies. I want you to stay away from getting any soapy water near these ports on top of your oven door. This is the breathing port for the 2 panes of glass on your oven door. And if you get some soapy water down in there, it will drip down in between the 2 panes of glass, and then you'll have some streaks down in the middle. This is not on the inside of your oven. This part is, this part where the vents are is not, so it's not gonna get dirty anyway, okay? To clean some bigger chunks off the bottom of the oven, you can see if you can pop them off with a flat razor. You don't dig into the paint, you just see if you can gently pop it off, get it to release on its own. Also, when you're cleaning the window of the oven, after you put the detergent on there, you can go back and forth with the flat razor and scrape that detergent and any grime off, and then go back over and wipe it down, okay? So cleanup, the more often you do it, the better. Don't try and clean a hot oven. Always wait till it's cooled off. If you have something that's really stubborn, that's not coming off, there's a product called Carbon-Off, which is made to eat carbonized food debris that's burnt onto the bottom of a pan or the bottom of your oven, okay? If it's turned black and it's not going anywhere and you have tried everything, Carbon-Off might be something you want to try. You can try residential grade spray degreasers such as Kaboom, Easy Off. There are several different brands out there. But the emphasis is what you would buy from your local supermarket. You're not going to the local restaurant supply to get heavy duty products, okay? So as far as taking care of the outside, stainless steel polish, or you can use Pledge on a towel. This is the lemon enhancing polish. It has very little oils in it, and it will polish up the stainless steel very nicely. The glass on your ovens, Windex, okay, or Sprayway glass cleaner. The scrubby we want to use is the blue scrubby. These are less abrasive than the green and yellows, okay? These little sponges are great. They're going to be a milder scrub once they get hot, but they are also effective, okay? And Mr. Eraser can be effective on some of those stains that don't want to come off with some of the other detergents. All right. So I think we have covered all of the modes. We have covered the cleaning and the caring for the inside of your oven and the outside of your oven. And if you want to let me know if you have any other questions at this time, Kelsey can moderate and let me know. Does anyone have any questions that I haven't covered? We'll give you a minute to type. Nothing coming through? Well, I will tell you, the chefs at Roth Living are an ongoing resource for you. So if there's a question that you think of today, tomorrow, that you want answered, you can call one of the Roth Living showrooms and ask to speak to the chef if it were one of our classes. They can give you our email or put you into voicemail, and we'll get back a hold of you and make sure that those questions are answered. We want to make sure that you really understand your ovens and how they work and how to get the most out of them. Okay, do we have a question? Okay.
Can you just repeat the answer to the temperature,
Okay, yeah. So Monet wanted to know, wanted me to repeat how to change the temperature on the oven when you're already, so if we're already on 325 convection, you've cooked some cookies, 325 convection, and then you decide, okay, I want to roast some vegetables at 400 degrees convection. Then what you're going to do is touch convection, the command or mode convection, and you're going to touch 400 and hit enter. And that's going to change the temperature on your oven in convection mode from 325 to 400. Okay? And Monet, if you have any more questions on that, you're more than happy to call me at the Kansas City showroom and I can walk you through step by step how to do that. Okay? So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope that we've given you lots of ideas and that we've cleared up many of the mysteries of how your oven's working and how you can get the most out of it. So thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you in one of our showrooms soon, or posting some videos or some pictures of the beautiful food that you're doing in your houses with your family and friends. Okay? Thanks for joining us. You have a great day.